Good day, Black Knight scholars. Mr. Deegan here. I'm in the VidNote zone. It's time for 9-4 VidNotes. Let's write out our learning target. I will understand the major battles of World War II in the Pacific Theater. The Pacific Theater involves this empire, Japan, and here are all the major battles in the Pacific Ocean. Japan stretches its empire beyond its island to include China, Korea, and other lands. The Miracle at Midway, Part 1. In the Battle of Midway Island in the Pacific Ocean, America's Navy was the underdog in this. The Japanese Army vastly outnumbered it. However, the U.S. defeated the Japanese in June 1942. This was 6 months after Japan's attack on Pearl Harbor. So here's Hawaii. America meets Japan in Midway Island, where it wins. Part 2. If Japan had won the Battle of Midway, it would have taken over Hawaii. The American victory chased Japan away from Hawaii. After this win, the U.S. began its island-hopping strategy, which moved the war closer to Japan and away from the mainland of the U.S. And that's a good thing. We don't want Japan taking over California. Iwo Jima and Okinawa. After Midway, America invades the Japanese islands of Iwo Jima and Okinawa. Both invasions brought the U.S. closer than ever to the Japanese mainland. So in dark green is the Japanese mainland here. And here is Iwo Jima, which takes place in early 1945. And here is Okinawa, and that battle takes place later on in the spring and summer of 1945. Huge casualty count. Both Iwo Jima and Okinawa cost America thousands of soldiers' lives. Also, Japanese soldiers fought fiercely over every square inch of the islands. Japanese soldiers and civilians committed suicide rather than surrender to the U.S. The Japanese military code of Bushido existed since the year 700, so a long time ago. And this code said that surrender was a sign of weakness. So here is the Japanese version of Bushido. There's the Japanese characters there. And a version of Bushido was the kamikaze attacks by Japanese pilots. They flew their planes into American warships, killing the Japanese pilot and American soldiers on the warship. They didn't care about committing suicide if it meant they would weaken the U.S. military. That's how the Japanese fought. The U.S. uses 2 A-bombs. In August 1945, U.S. President Harry Truman, there he is, the 33rd president of these United States, ordered the dropping of 2 atomic bombs on the Japanese cities of Hiroshima and Nagasaki. Truman said that if the bombs weren't used, both U.S. and Japanese soldiers faced huge death counts if U.S. troops invaded mainland Japan because of Japan's Bushido code, no surrender. Were 2 atomic bombs necessary? 2? Why not 1? And atomic bombs? Why not regular bombs? On August 15th, 1945, Japan's Emperor Hirohito surrenders to the U.S. less than 1 week after the second atomic bomb was dropped. About 150,000 Japanese were killed in the Hiroshima bombing, and 3 days later, about 80,000 were killed in Nagasaki. These were men, women, and children who didn't have too much connection to the war. This was what Hiroshima looked like after the bombing. Most buildings were destroyed. It looks more like a desert landscape than a major city. And this was a woman who had radiation poisoning. Look at the burns on her skin. Many Japanese died months or years later after the bombing of cancer from radiation poisoning. The summary question: should the US government have dropped 2 atomic bombs on Japan to end World War II? That is your question. Please write that answer down. And don't forget about the 9-4 Canvas quiz. When you're done, you are done with 9-4. This is Mr. Deegan reporting live from the VidNote Zone, signing off.